Everyone's wrong about this car. The reviews, the forums, the comment section, heck, even I was wrong about this car. Before I drove the Z NISMO, I'd written it off as an overpriced automatic-only cash grab that missed the point of what a sports car should be. I mean, 60 grand for a Nissan with no manual? Come on. But after spending some real time with this thing, I realized that almost everything the car community has been saying about this Nismo is based on assumptions, not experience. And of course, the guy wearing the Save the Manual shirt has some problems with this thing, but it's not what you think. It's a little bit more complicated. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse Racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Look, I came into this test with the same skepticism as the rest of the internet. This is a $66,000 Nissan. That's Cayman money, that's Corvette money, that's serious sports car money. The reality is, though, that sometimes being expensive doesn't mean overpriced, and challenging your assumptions is often a good thing. And before we get into what this is like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. What differentiates the Nismo from a regular Z is a long list. Starts with a better platform, better steering, upgraded suspension, bigger brakes, lighter wheels, the list goes on. There's a lot that differentiates the Nismo from a regular Z, starting with a better platform, upgraded suspension, better steering, bigger brakes, lighter wheels. It's a long list. The chassis is stiffer through a number of reinforcements. There is more aero, no official numbers from Nissan, however, and if I was at the launch, I would have asked that question specifically. Front downforce is way up with the splitter and the canards. Rear downforce is up a little with the full width spoiler. There's slightly more drag, of course, and there's more cooling for the engine and brakes. Under the hood is the same 3-liter twin turbo V6, but power and torque is up. 420 horsepower at 6,400 RPM and 384 pounds of torque from 2,000 to 5,200 RPM with improved oil cooling. Transmission's a 9-speed automatic with Nismo tuning. It is rear-wheel drive, of course, with a mechanical limited slip diff in the back. Steering's electrically assisted with Nismo-specific stiffer steering rack mounting bushings, Nismo-specific steering tuning, and it benefits from the stiffer platform with improved response and precision. But the steering's not any quicker compared to the regular Z despite published reports. Now onto the suspension. It's still based on double wishbones at the front, multi-link at the rear, but Nissan says everything is better for drivers like us, but doesn't provide a whole lot of detail, so I did a deep dive. Chassis rigidity is up 2.5%. The suspension makes this sit 10 millimeters or about an inch lower. Front springs are stiffer by 7%. Rear springs are stiffer by 13%. Dampers are stiffer on compression and rebound, I'm guessing, by 15%. Anti-roll bar stiffness up 10%. And bushings are 8% stiffer than the regular Z. Brake calipers are by Akebono, 4-piston calipers at the front with 15-inch rotors, 2-piston at the rear with 13.8-inch rotors, and there are more aggressive track-oriented brake pads on the Nismo. Wheels and tires are 19s, 255 wide at the front, 285 at the rear. These are Dunlop SP Sportmax GT600 tires with the same compound as used on the GTR. Plus, inside there's a pair of Recaro bucket seats. Curb weight is a little over 3,700 pounds. There is no official weight distribution numbers, but it looks to be about 54% front, 46% rear. But on this channel, we know it's not static weight distribution that counts, it's how you use it. Now, I do think this Nismo represents Nissan's philosophy of what if we actually tried? After years of badge engineering their way through the entire product range, slapping Nismo badges on everything, they've built something that addresses real performance concerns rather than just ticking marketing boxes. Aero, suspension, drivetrain, seats. It's like getting a superhero movie where they actually care about the story instead of the special effects budget. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Officially, Nissan says this will do 0 to 60 in 3.94 seconds. The 6-speed manual is about half a second slower to 60. Top speed's about 165 miles an hour, which is right on point for what this Z NISMO is engineered for. There's a lot to love about this engine, the way it develops power, the way it develops torque. The sound is fantastic, but acceleration's another thing when you're giving it the beans. And I don't think we need to. Do we need to do another launch control start? Not really. It's so easy to launch this thing. Let's give it another shot. No launch control needed. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We have the drama of massive acceleration. We did get a little wheel spin shifting into second gear, and then we've got the great noise coming from the engine and the exhaust. Very impressive all around, and I really dig this drivetrain, especially when you're giving it the beans. When you're not giving it the beans, however, this transmission seems to have a different program altogether. This is a thing about this drivetrain. The engine's ready to rock, the limited slip diff is ready to drop some bass, but this transmission, well, it seems like somebody handed a slightly confused songbook. This is a great example here, accelerating moderately up to speed. It's just shift, shift, shift after shift, like we're trying to pursue some fuel consumption numbers. But on the flip side, when you've got this in Sport or Sport Plus and you're shifting manually, this thing is absolutely brilliant. But every once in a while in regular day-to-day driving, the transmission just upshifts more abruptly, more aligned with an economy car than what should be a brilliant sports car. And I do think with some additional calibration and giving this transmission the opportunity to lean on the torque that the engine makes, this could be a brilliant setup. It just needs a little bit more finesse. We do live in a turbocharged era, but Nissan hasn't forgotten what proper power delivery is supposed to be. Instead of the typical turbo surge that hits like a caffeinated slap, this Nismo develops power progressively and predictably. You can modulate the throttle with confidence because the engine responds to your inputs rather than its own interpretation of what you might want. It's like having a conversation with someone who actually listens instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. The result with the turbos and how the entire engine is calibrated makes it feel like it's a much larger displacement engine than the 3 liters of displacement actually suggests. While the transmission does have some other ideas when we're cruising around, when I'm really on top of this car and asking for all of its power and all of its torque, the way the engine and transmission work together is exceptionally well resolved. And that's the thing when you're on maximum attack, which is the most fun way to drive this thing. The engine, the transmission, the diff all complement each other to create seamless power delivery and getting all that power to the ground perfectly. When you're accelerating out of a corner, you're not managing individual components, you're just driving. And that's the thing, Nissan hasn't forgotten how to do that. The car takes care of the technical details while you focus on the fun bits. It's the sports car equivalent of a great symphony orchestra. Individual excellence combining into something that's much greater than the sum of its parts. As much as I have a love-hate relationship with the way this transmission works, I'm starting to see what Nismo's done here. Because when I'm driving this to its maximum potential, it's very clear that the transmission does exactly what it should do. And there's no question in my mind that this Nismo would turn much faster lap times than another Nismo equipped with the 6-speed manual, as much as I love manuals. And I'm going to hold out hope that Nissan fits a 6-speed manual to this Nismo before the sports car party comes to an end. Inside the cabin, it's enhanced with 2 big improvements. One, the steering wheel is a little bit different, great shape, great size, a little bit of Alcantara in the 9 and 3 zones where your hands are supposed to be. There is a little red ring at the top of the steering wheel, which will supposedly keep you pointed in the right direction when the cornering gets interesting and you might have a little bit of an oversteer attitude, but really dig the steering wheel. The shift paddles are an easy reach. The biggest difference, however, in this interior are these fantastic Recaros. These are outstanding. They're manually adjustable. When you got them set up, these are absolutely perfect. I've got a great seating position here, Great interface to the wheel, great interface to the pedals, and I'm just seated perfectly inside this cockpit. Love the seating position and love the support I get out of these seats. The rest of the cabin is the same Z that we know and love. Digital instrument cluster. It is configurable, very simple infotainment system. There are some secondary controls on the steering wheel for volume and things like that, but you also have adaptive cruise control. And with the tech on board here in this Z NISMO, it's a situation where we've got just enough tech and no tech overload here. Ergonomics are simple and straightforward. They're in the Nissan style, so if you're familiar with Nissan, you'll be right at home here. Appreciate the 3 gauges on top of the dashboard, but in an era where everything is modern by the engine management, those are probably a bit redundant, and I really haven't been looking at them all that much. Maybe that's something your passengers would enjoy, but I find them perhaps a little bit redundant. This automatic shifter is interesting in that it slides to change gears. You have to press a button on the left side of the shifter to go from park to drive or from drive to reverse, and then you can slide it back to go from drive to manual control of the gears, and then you've got shift pedals here to do the shifting for you. Visibility is quite good, at least in the forward direction, and it's very easy to see out of this thing. Large outboard mirrors, you adjust those and your rear view mirror properly, and blind spots aren't real. The only limitation to visibility is out the back window. From this perspective, it's just a little bit of glass that you're looking through. It's not terrible, but you could use a little bit more rearward visibility. But on the other hand, this is a sports car and you really shouldn't be concerned about what's behind you. In terms of spaciousness, well, there's a decent amount of room here. There's a limited amount of headroom. I'm 5'10" on a good day, so govern yourself accordingly if you're taller than me. Enough space for your passenger, a little bit of storage. There's a cup holder here and a couple of small bottle holders in the doors. Given that I did take this on a bit of a longer road trip, I did find that none of this situation is a comfortable place to rest my elbow. There was an era not too long ago when manufacturers would put much more aggressive seats in their cars and everybody would get all excited. Now it's a bit of an anomaly, but these Recaros are actually a masterclass in sports car ergonomics. They're deeply bolstered so they hold you in place during aggressive cornering while remaining comfortable enough for actual long drives, which I did. The manual adjustment might seem primitive in 2025, but when you're setting up for the perfect driving position, you want precise control and not some computer's interpretation of where you should sit. It's like the difference between a tailor-made suit and something off the rack. They both cover your body, but only one sets you up properly for an adventure behind the wheel of a sports car. And I think the lack of tech, or this just enough amount of tech, is what differentiates the Z from everything else. You still get physical controls for climate, real buttons for important functions, and switches that provide actual tactile feedback. In an era where most cars feel like they were designed by iPad enthusiasts, this NISMO maintains that crucial connection between driver intent and vehicle response. It's like finding a restaurant that uses real ingredients to serve real food instead of molecular gastronomy. In terms of ride and handling, the first thing you notice is that this does ride firmer than a regular Z, that's for sure. It sits a little bit lower, and that's great, but I do find the suspension system optimized for the intended purpose, but in day-to-day driving, especially in an area where I live, where the roads are terrible, the ride can become punishing, so you're always looking for the smoothest road surface. And that's the thing about sports cars, they are about compromise, and if you're up for it, you can daily drive this. Just keep in mind it does have a little bit of a firm ride. On challenging roads, though, it transforms into something that embarrasses cars costing 2 and 3 times as much. The entire platform and all of the suspension components were clearly specifically considered for this NISMO because they work exceptionally well together. The tires always seem to be in contact with the road, and overall this entire platform gives me incredible confidence. I've got such confidence with this NISMO in the corners. It's astonishing. This is probably the best handling Z I've ever driven. In the press releases and the marketing materials for this NISMO, Nissan said a lot of things about the steering, and they get a little esoteric about it. They call it a one-shot steering kind of system where the driver is intended to pick a line and the steering complies eyes and you stay on target, but that's really not what this steering system is about. This is an exceptionally well-resolved electrically assisted steering system and may be, in fact, one of the best I've ever driven, if not the best. This car goes exactly where you point it, when you point it, without wandering or any vagueness that plagues some modern sports cars. It carves lines with ease, but then when you're playing with this Nismo at its limits, you can correct with steering inputs as well as throttle inputs, but the steering inputs are so precise, it gives you a tremendous amount of confidence, and I think this is one of those cars that will make you a better driver. And corner after corner, you can trust that your steering inputs with this Nismo will make sure that this car is always on your intended line. Similarly, the brakes are excellent. You've got those 6-piston calipers at the front, and you've got an upgraded pad for performance driving or track work, and this really works. I'm so impressed with the brakes here. Well, we found some corners. I think we should take them, shall we? Let's. Turn in response is immediate, it's direct, feedback is clear. Pick up the throttle out of the corner. Wow, this thing is so good in the corners. This is just something else. I've got such confidence in the steering, in the brakes, in the amount of grip, and when I'm playing with this at its limits, it's so predictable. Yeah, when we're giving it, the transmission shifts so quickly up and down the box. Tough corner here, off camber on exit. Let's see what we've got, Nismo. Oh, brilliant. Wow. This is just outstanding. It might be a characteristic of this Nismo, but the pedal effort here now matches the steering and throttle inputs. The control weights are all aligned, and that creates a unified interface to the driver where every control feels connected to this car. When you're transitioning from braking to picking up the throttle, exiting a corner, there's no jarring difference in effort or response. When you're jumping onto the brake before a corner and then transitioning off the brake pedal and coming onto the throttle, there's no difference in control weights. It's all in harmony here. It's like getting a high-end sound system out of the box where the bass, mid, and treble are perfectly balanced. And when Nissan pays attention to something, they can really turn out a beautiful package. And overall, the dynamics here are incredibly impressive. This is one of the very few cars I've driven in a very long time where I have complete confidence to play with this at its limits anytime I want. The chassis, the steering, the braking is all so high fidelity that I know exactly what's going on in each of the contact patches. Just love this car. How do you spec yours? Well, that's a very easy question to answer because Nissan makes it easy for us. What you are looking at is a Z NISMO in stealth gray with the super black roof. Base price in the US is $65,750, and for the two-tone paint, it's $1,295 for a total as tested of $67,045. In Canada, base price is $75,998. Two-tone paint adds $1,200 for a total as tested of $77,198, and that's before freight, taxes, incentives, etc. In terms of speccing yours, well, the only choice is color, so pick your color and be happy with your Z NISMO. But one thing to consider, at this price, you're into Corvette money, but on the other hand, you'd have to deal with Corvette owners and questionable fashion choices. But wait, there's more. Before you get all excited about ordering your Z NISMO, we had a look at what the Z community had to say about the ownership experience, which is much more revealing than anything I can discover in a week-long test. First, there's a brake dust situation, and it's real. The NISMO pads cover your wheels in dust after 15 minutes, they say, even with ceramic coating. It's not a defect, it's physics, but it means wheel maintenance becomes a weekly ritual rather than a monthly one. As well, owners say the paint is notably thin compared to other manufacturers. Stone chips happen fast, and ceramic coating isn't optional if you plan to keep this thing looking good. In the real world, owners say fuel consumption in this NISMO runs to 17 to 19 miles per gallon with spirited driving, despite official numbers suggesting better. My numbers are also revealing. Premium fuel isn't just recommended, it's required for full performance. The difference between 91 and 93 octane is measurable, owners say. And here's the NISMO reality check according to owners. It's genuinely transformative on smooth roads and tracks, but those suspension upgrades that feel brilliant at 1G become punishing on real streets. Forum consensus is clear. Track weapon, daily compromise. And thanks to the Z NISMO community, because they really get this car, which is much more than I can glean in a brief test. They love it for what it is and are brutally honest about what it isn't. My verdict, well, let's start with fuel consumption because it's interesting. On an extended road trip, I actually got 25 miles per gallon. That was mostly on the highway, 9.3 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends, and that is astonishing. The rest of my driving was nowhere near that, and I didn't bother tracking it because this is so much fun to drive. And speaking of the NISMO, there's a lot about this I got wrong before I drove this car. And I think the thing is, we've been judging this car for what it isn't instead of appreciating what it is. Yes, it's expensive for a Nissan. Yes, it comes only with an automatic. Yes, 20 horsepower doesn't sound like much, but focusing on these things completely misses the point. The NISMO isn't trying to be the cheapest sports car or the most powerful or the most traditional. It's trying to be the most complete. And when you stop looking for reasons to dismiss it and start paying attention to what it actually does, you realize Nissan finally built something very special here. Is it perfect? No. Is it worth $66,000 for the right driver? Absolutely. And for me, sometimes being wrong actually feels good when the car is this right. And with this NISMO, I think this is a case where the rest of the car is so good all of the time, especially when you're enjoying this in the corners, which is what it's meant to do, that the shortcomings of the transmission in low speed, day-to-day driving, it's one of those things that you just have to overlook. It's not perfect, no car is. It does a lot of things well, especially the high performance driving part that it was intended to do. And sometimes the best cars are the ones that make you forget you're driving a car and force you to remember why you love driving. But for me, this car would be absolutely perfect with a 6-speed manual. It gives me all of the driving engagement and a fantastic platform. In a road car that you can take to the track, I'm still not looking to turn the fastest lap times. I just want to enjoy myself. And I think the Z NISMO would be brilliant with a 6-speed manual. No doubt, however, it'll be quicker around any racetrack with this 9-speed automatic. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this Nissan Z NISMO. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this, and as always, sharing is caring, so please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Nissan Z NISMOs. And since you've hung around this long, we'll have a look at our first review of this latest generation Z with the 6-speed manual. I think you might enjoy that episode. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time.